name is Tata. I am B2B product strategy and growth advisor at Picsart. And the last 15 years I've spent in business. Out of 15, 13 I've spent in product and marketing. I've been part of really large organizations like Nike and Deloitte, and also startups like Pangaya in UK, if you know, and Picsart for the last 2 years. I am a course creator and lecturer. 500 people survived my lectures, and I hope today the webinar would be helpful for you. If you want to connect and discuss any of the points, share your feedback, I would be very happy. My LinkedIn QR code is here. I'll give you just 1 second to do that scanning, and we can move on. Pixart, if you haven't heard of Pixart yet, is one of the world's largest AI-powered creative platforms with 150 million monthly active users. And last year, we had 2 million AI images generated per day. And before we get into the details of different tools, I just want to give you a little bit of background why we're speaking on the topic of AI and how Pixart and AI are connected. It's actually a pretty wild story, but the founder of Pixart, Hovhannes Savayan, started his PhD in AI in 90s, which is like decades ago, when AI was not a thing at all. He built the quite large for that time in 2016 AI team of 16 people, and that team grew really fast. Into 2021, we had about 70 people of AI research scientists working globally, and started releasing a whole bunch of different AI tools, which were really taking off. And in 2022, Gen AI goes viral. As Hovhannes says, finally, what I have been researching for years and teaching at uni got all of that attention. And also, of course, that ignited that whole new era for Pixart. And last year, we launched our own AI image models, and it says on a slide 12, but there are a few more coming soon, Gen AI tools. So I am hoping that today's session is going to be helpful and useful for you. And before we kick off, I wanted to show you and inspire you a little bit of the real product which we produced for the Web Summit last year when Hovhannes was at stage. Our creative team has put together a whole product concept using AI tools. So please enjoy. Awesome. So now I guess you as me want a pack of sardines. I'd like to know you a little more. We just did an introduction, and I'd like to meet you a little more and learn more about your business and your setup. There are going to be poll questions coming up now for you, and there are a couple of questions I'm going to ask, and we're going to get to the answers a little later. So, how big is your marketing team right now? Would be the question number one. I'll wait a couple of seconds for you to answer the poll. Cool, let's move on. The question number 2, I'm really curious, how do you use AI for marketing and creative optimizations? And there are a couple of preset answers in the poll, but I just wanted to tell you, if there is any other way aside from the ones in the poll, please comment in the chat. I'm reading the chat over here. So I would be extremely interested to read through and understand if we could learn something new and also get inspired by your usage of AI. And the question number 3, you get one AI best friend. Which AI tool is it? my best friend I know, but I'm not going to tell you up until the end of a session. So please let me know in the answers, and would be super happy to walk you through the results in a second. I think we're still getting the questions in, so we can jump into the poll answers in a little bit. Meanwhile, I would go a little bit through the introduction of what is going to be covered today during the session. So first of all, what we hope you're going to walk out from the session today with is you should be able to identify the right AI tools for your business for effective optimization of a speed, span, and efficiency of your creative and marketing processes. And one thing I would tell you is that number one question has been how to use the right AI tools, how to find the right application for the business in the preset questions from the webinar registrations. So I promise you there is going to be a lot of real content here and real examples which you could use in your business. So when it comes to the AI, there are a lot of different terms being used. Generative AI, general AI, GPT, data science, machine learning, and it could be extremely confusing, to be honest. So I wanted to share with you one of my favorite graphs. It is inspired by the original graph from Andrew Ng. If you don't know Andrew, he's one of the co-founders of Google Brain, a Stanford professor, and his AI course is just amazing. And this graph might be a little complicated at first sight, but I promise you it's super simple to understand. So if you think about AI as a general thing, one thing which is very important to understand is that it's all based on data, because artificial intelligence as a whole subset is part of data science. Then we get to the second layer, which is artificial intelligence. And that's the theory so far and some methods to build machines which think and act like humans. And I would tell you straight away, we're pretty far away from the machines acting and behaving and reacting like humans. Then there is a subset of AI, which is machine learning. And there are a few different options of the way machine learning works. The most common ones is supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. And this is something which has been out there for many, many years. There are multiple examples of the usage of machine learning. For example, you could decide in the data set if it's a right or a wrong answer, or treat some things like as a red or blue, and then the AI would learn, and that's called supervised learning. It would learn and then would be able to classify the things on its own. That's a very, very large section of AI, and it's most of the revenue and most of the usage of AI tools are actually in this. An example of this could be also machine learning algorithms being used, could be also things like dynamic pricing, for example, which is used by a bunch of different airlines. Then there is a subset of that, which is deep learning, and deep learning mimics the human brain using AI, neural networks, and allows computers to perform complex tasks. And the subset of that deep learning part, as well as natural language processing and computer vision, NLP works with a lot of different tags, computer vision works with the visuals, and the intersection of these three things is where the Gen AI is. Today, I'm going to cover both the things on the supervised machine learning. A lot of the algorithms which I'm going to be showing there are going to be in the machine learning part, and on generative AI. And there is a reason for that. Most of the commercial usage nowadays is in the supervised learning and machine learning, not just Gen AI. And I just saw from the team that we got the poll answers. So before I go to the considerations and limitations, let me give you a little snapshot. So most of our participants are actually working in small to mid-sized teams from up to 10 people, about 50% of our audience today, up to 20 people, about 13% of our audience. And there is quite a big percentage of us who are a one-person team, 30%. So I hope that today's session is going to be making your work easier, as most of you work not in huge marketing teams, and optimize the processes for you so you can work more productively. And it looks like from the way AI is being used now, most of the usage is in the content creation and optimization. That's more than 70%. Oh, I'm so excited to share the slides later on to just explain how AI could be used. So before we jump into all the meaty part of how the AI tools could be used, I want to speak about the limitations and considerations. First, because this whole field of artificial intelligence, and in particular the machine learning and generative AI, is relying on substantially large data sets to perform those functions, you should understand, depending on the tool you choose, that it has been trained on a large enough data set and a good enough data set. And the pros of using AI is, of course, all these wonderful things like automation, decision-making, personalization, efficiency, and you're going to see some of these benefits on the tools when we're going to discuss them. But there are also some considerable downsides or the risks which you should be aware of. One is the security, and I would warn everyone from using just any AI model or tool out there if you're using the corporate data, especially if you work in a large corporation, because that data could go back and train the original model. So your result could be given to someone else, or your data. The ethical aspect, of course, then it also creates dependencies, because once you start using some of the models, it's really hard to stop using them. And a lot of the models are biased. So when you train the model as a scientist, as I was explained, a lot of the times they try to achieve a good result, which could be a good quality image. But in the very, very beginning, about 2 years ago, not necessarily all the AI models have been trained with all these considerations of diversity, for example, in the visual language. Therefore, in about 2 years ago, if you were testing models, you would see the results being skewed to a particular race or particular gender. Now the models are getting way better. So the promise. There are 4 core marketing applications: planning, analysis, creative, and service. And the whole presentation is structured and covering all of its themes. So I'll be going through one by one. Please feel free to add in the comments or later in the Q&A if you're interested in particularly in one of his areas. So let's go through the planning part first. Brainstorming, CaaS dev interviews, ideation, research. There are so many applications, and I call this the assistant. I dreamed of having an assistant who would be really smart and do the job really fast, or an intern in the team who would be really, really cool. So now I use for a lot of this a combination of AI tools. And here is an example of how me personally, giving you a big secret of mine, use AI for customer research. And this is an exact algorithm I used to do the customer research for Picsart B2B division for defining the product strategy, for example. I define the customer segments with GPT for a specific product or service. And here, having the right prompts is the key. Then I move on to BART to find the companies of those segments, estimated value size of the segments as well. Why? Because I use the free version of GPT and BART has more recent data. Then I use GPT to scan reviews on these products and my product. Most of the times GPT is good enough for me. Sometimes I use more comprehensive AI tools which are targeted for CaaS dev. Then I use GPT to draft emails on LinkedIn messages to customers for setting up one-on-one interviews. And when running the customer calls, use, well, this is my preference, the app called Supernormal for the call recording and the summaries. This saves so much time. And then I pull insights in a doc because the Supernormal port puts everything in a doc. And then I can use Pixart extension to move the doc to a slide format and also use text to image to visualize the slides. All of this, my explanation takes, I think, longer than actually the whole work processes, aside from the interviews itself. So if you want to use this framework, please feel free, saves a bunch of time. Another really cool one is what the creative team is using. So I asked creative director of Picsart, Scott, to share where he used AI for like the latest time. And he said that was for defining the summer and winter art direction for the website. So Moodboards is definitely one of the easy ones. You could also use it for concepting and drafting some of the products. So here I created a prompt for the coffee box. I'm a coffee fan. You'll see a couple of coffee examples here. So you could see that the results of generative AI are pretty impressive in terms of the quality of output. The second one, and here I'm going to spend a little more time in, because this is the lifesaver for any marketing person, is the data partner. It lets you focus on strategy and insights instead of drowning yourself in spreadsheets. And I'll explain what I mean. Examples of great data partner tools are either working with data sets, ad optimization, or large text if you're a marketing person. Again, I streamlined this presentation for people in marketing. Of course, if you work in some other direction, that would be slightly different. But for us, marketing people, this is perfect. An example is AI data analysis in Sheets. If you're not using these plugins, you are missing out. When you need to analyze large data sets of data, have faster data analysis, got insights quicker, AI is pretty good at it. So if you have a GPT extension on your Google Sheets, it's super easy for you to put your query and the algorithm would do the thing for you. Another awesome example is for larger companies. If you have a pretty big corporation you're working, is using AI-powered reporting and analytics to connect different data sources. Here is an example from Improvato. There are other tools like Nanos AI, Braze AI, SEMrush, etc., where you can connect different data sources and analyze the data faster and put your queries in. I find this extremely helpful. We have these implemented on our own at Picsart for the research data, and it's super helpful. You can just go to the research database and put your query, and it puts all the data in super, super fast. So I don't need to go through the decks. I don't need to go through the slides. I don't need to ask the people. Makes my life much easier and the team's life much easier as well. Then the part which has been really impressive for me, because I'm not a big SEO expert. However, I did a deep dive with the team for the SEO analysis and growth behind some of the products at Picsart. And they share with me how exactly they work with articles creation. And I was very impressed with what the tools like SEMrush or Sephora can do for you. For example, when you have generated the copy, which most of you, more than 70% of you are using already, you could actually also evaluate with this tool, with the AI, how good the copy is or what are the things which are missing. That's another really strong application of using the AI tools. And we didn't even get to the visual part. The campaign optimization is another one, and I'll show you an example for small companies, which is this one, and also for larger companies. This one is AI-powered paid ads optimization tool. There are about 25% of you who are one-person marketing team. So you are the GM, the CEO of marketing, the CMO, all of the paid marketing managers, social media manager, etc. And that's a lot of roles to combine. So the tools like this example is from Nanos AI, allows you to use AI-powered algorithms to optimize the paid ad budgets. And why to use this kind of stuff? It allows you to do continuous experimentation and bidding for budget optimization. How does that work? You input the data from your brand website or brand book of like, what's your brand, what's the product, what's the price, what's the budget you can allocate. And then you don't need to worry because it allocates the budget to different channels. It creates the ads for you. And then you are able to observe real time as the algorithm learns and bids on the right keywords for you, how the budget is being resplit and reorganized. So you don't need to do the paid media job optimization if you don't have that kind of a person in your team. Then there is a very interesting tool for campaign optimization as well, which uses AI-powered data from one of the largest research agencies out there called Canar. I was talking with Julia a week ago, who is heading their German business, and she was sharing with me that they have this awesome AI tool, and I checked it out last week, which is super nice. It predicts the conversion abandon rates for the videos based on all the years of research Canar has done. And it works very well for expensive TV and YouTube production. So before you launch something and put a huge budget, for example, for FIFA World Cup commercial, or for anything like a big product launch, you're able to measure the things and see just using the AI-powered tool. I find it very sophisticated and nice. And also what is very cool is that this stuff is pretty available. It doesn't, like all these things which I'm showing you, they don't cost a fortune. You just have to find out the right tool. And when we go into the part with creative, this part is going to be finally for you, the one where you are using, like most of you, for content creation and creative part. I hope also will bring you some ideas and inspirations of the things you can use. My main takeaway of using AI for the last 2.5 years daily for creative optimization is that the main benefit is creating the advertising content at scale. And I'll explain you why. The rise of social media over all these years and digital marketing showed us that there is this crazy demand for new content, and we gotta create new content all the time, post more stories, post more social media stuff, have a whole variety of content to produce. And you see that this demand is forecasted to continue to grow and hit 107 billion by 2026. And the truth is that most of the companies, according to a bunch of different researchers, are struggling to scale up the content production. It's both about small companies as well as large companies. Most of the companies say it's really hard to produce that amount of content. Even we at Picsart suffer from that. Like, we're discussing the amount of content we need to produce for landing pages, and we realize that we're just not able to keep up with that. If we just work with design team, we've got to use the AI to scale the content. And then creating content at scale is costly and time consuming. And here I want to give you an insight which just breaks my mind. National Advertising Institute has done a research that on average in digital ads, for every $5 spent on content creation, we only spend $1 for distribution or for promotion. And that's a crazy stat. So we spend a lot of resource and time to create the content, but we don't promote that content enough, or we don't spend money on promotion. And that ratio should actually change. I remember when I was working at Nike, we had the rule that we should spend way more budget for promoting the videos than the time we create them. And the media budget and the creation budget were like 1-3 proportion. So this is really worrying if this is the stat for your business as well. But there is a solution. The time-consuming, operationally challenging, and quite expensive process can actually, with the help of AI, scale quite effectively, eliminate the unnecessary routine tasks, and save dollars on content creation. I am not going to cover the parts today in the presentation of things like how creative the AI is, or how cool you could use the different prompts at Midjourney to generate the perfect visual, because you know all of that without me. What I want to show today is some applications where you can actually improve your business processes and improve the efficiency of marketing. There are a lot of really cool examples of how AI has been used by a number of brands. My favorite, Nike, did AI-powered UGC product creation, which is Nike by You. It was extremely successful. I'm not sharing the numbers publicly, so I can't share, but the engagement of audience to be able to create using AI different variations of their favorite stickers was really dope. Heinz did this really fun campaign using AI to create the visuals for 360 campaigns. So they use this everywhere on posters, socials, everywhere. And they did this with, I think the agency is called Roofing Canada, and I saw there are a bunch of people from Canada dialing in, so hi Canada. It looks like this campaign generated a massive amount of engagement. And also, did you know that AI thinks that any ketchup is Heinz? These campaigns are awesome examples, another one, which you most probably have seen from Coca-Cola, of how you could use AI for UGC creation, how you could use AI to empower your audience to engage with the content and create content for you. But there are other ways as well. For example, you could use AI to create a bunch of different visuals for testing paid media. And you could see here that as an example, you could create a coffee machine background visuals and a copy as well. And it generates you the full-on ad with different backgrounds super easily. So it looks pretty realistic. You can run your paid ad tests and make sure that it looks pretty slick, pretty on point. This is using Picsart's ad maker tool. So you could see it's super straightforward. You don't really need to be a mega creative person to use this. Then it could be used for alternative for stock imagery. And here are a few processes which we all should be aware about. And that's not just Gen AI being used here. So create an image as Gen AI. Then you can enhance or upscale the photo. This is not pure Gen AI. You remember all the different types of AI I've shown you. And then you can also extend the image. This is, by the way, one of the newest AI tools Pixart has launched. So from create an image, upscaling the photo, and then solving that pain which we all face when the image is just in square, if you ever work with stock imagery, or just vertical and you need a horizontal one, it's super easy to resolve. Another thing you can do is create product shots at scale. If you work with e-commerce business or you have your own product, super easy to create different backgrounds, adjust the image with a tool called AI Replace, where you could put different clothing, for example, on a model. And you could even go next step, like one more step further, is to create the whole visual as in the right one, adding things to make the ad look exactly like you want it to be. There is even one step further. If you want to train your own model, you can train your own models nowadays. Some of the providers offer that. We at Picsart as well is creating the product shots instead of a photo shoot, and also doing things like model face swap for localization campaigns, or if you want to have another model on the photos. I'll just add here an important thing is depending on the area you live in and the country as well as the state, there are different legal clearances you need. So if you want to talk and do this kind of stuff, talk to your lawyers. This has been, Picsart lawyer asked me to say that, so please talk to your lawyers depending on a country where you are. But the most important part here is that you should be like, there is such a huge world of opportunities. So I'm really excited that there is this world where we all as marketing people can make things much faster. And of course, you have seen a bunch of different avatar tools as well as generating videos from text, which is another new direction, which is still very early. You would see that not all the videos from all the providers actually now in the market are perfect, but the results are pretty remarkable. And I think video is going to be one big next thing. There was a question asked, and we thought that it's worth to put on a slide, is with all these AI tools, how we don't all sound the same, how to strengthen the branding and customize the thing to your company. I'll take a pause here and reflect a little bit on how the AI works. AI works in the current way that Gen AI works in the way that it learns from data or from the input. It predicts based on the previous word you gave the AI what the next word is going to be, or based on the sentence you gave what the next sentence should be. So if you want to improve the tone of voice, you have to give sample copies to the models so they can adjust the copies for you. You also got to provide the context in the prompt. The things like the tone of voice, the things like the character, the things like if you want to be witty and funny or you want to be serious, and who's your target audience. Current AI models are pretty good at understanding this context, as well as if you provide the sample copies to be able to customize the copy for you. And of course, you can always custom train your own models. On the visual side, it's very, very similar. One part is the prompt part, where you need to provide the visual style brief to reflect the visual style of your brand. And then use smart editing controls for design. This is something which we started developing at Pixart quite recently, because we learned that a lot of times when you're using AI generation, the things get misplaced, like logos in different places or the colors are changing, etc. So we are developing a tool called Smart Controls, and that would allow you to log the elements which you don't want to change and allow the AI to change only the parts where you wanted the changes to happen. And of course, as I mentioned previously, you can custom train your own model. So depending on your resources, depending on what you want, you can go step further, etc. But I would say always to start from this context given, be that in a prompt or providing references, because that's the best way AI could understand what you want them to do. Someone said recently that you should treat AI as a very good, smart, and hardworking intern, but to someone who is super new to business. How would you provide very detailed brief? How would you explain the context? So I think it's a very good advice. I thought that it was pretty smart way of putting it. Think that AI is your newest intern, really smart, really cool person. You just need to provide good enough context so it understands how to do the task. And the last piece, the fourth one, is streamlining the processes and making it easier for your customer. This one is something which I personally enjoy because I like ops and I like to optimize things. So let's have a look at the things you can do. The use cases which clients come in to Pixart, for example, and therefore I judge how the companies implement this and use this, is embedding the editor in the product. So let's say if you're a website creation tool or marketing automation software, you can embed the editor. One of examples is the printing industry. They have embedded Picsart editor into their platform to allow their customers to edit things faster. You can use generative AI APIs to generate images in your CRMs, CMSs. A bunch of them already offer different AI tools, so check that out. And you can use remove background and Gen AI to create store listings, the use case which I showed partially before. And you could also offer merge customization for customers. Here is a great example from Sephora with AI chatbot. It's another way of improving the service. We have also implemented AI chatbot at Pixart for customer service. Works pretty well, and it got trained on a lot of answers from our customer support team, so it could provide a 24/7 support for most commonly asked questions. Good reference, in my opinion, from Sephora as well. And here is an example of how you could integrate some of the services or content to your platforms and customize some of the products if you are in e-commerce space, for example. So works rather straightforward and sounds, I think, more complicated than it is. A bunch of different platforms already offer this, so don't stay behind. Recapping, there are 4 core AI marketing applications: planning, analysis, creative, and service. I've heard a lot today that you're using, most of you, 70%, the creative part, and I'm really curious to learn more of the areas where you would want to start using it more, or maybe the ways you would like to have more creative part open up and test new tools which are available out there. The future of AI in marketing, in my personal opinion, is very bright and it's just starting. It's going to bring some changes, and I already see those changes in our teams and would like to share with you. And this is for discussion. So curious to read the chat once we finish the slides. It's a couple of slides left. The generalist culture. I do believe that there is going to be a lot of role combinations. And a lot of people are going to be generalist marketing people, generalist creative people, rather than specialized in some particular thing. Like maybe there is not going to be like a media marketing manager or paid UA manager in the distant future, but that's going to be a marketing manager who understands all these different channels. Second is that the workflows are going to change. 2 years ago, I was heading Picsart's content team, and that summer, I remember when the first AI models went into play, we first started implementing AI in our content creation process. That was a massive change in the workflows of how the creative team was working. It was a massive workflow change technically as well, because we had to implement a lot of different changes in the way we operate. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Our production volume increased with that very first subset of AI tools so much. To give an idea, we were able, with that team back then, produce about 300 templates a month. And after implementing the new workflow, not just AI, but the new workflow powered by AI, we were able to increase that amount to 2,000 a month with the same team, no changes on the team. And that is pretty cool, in my opinion. And the speed, which is faster testing cycle. Very often we want to test new creative concepts. Very often we want to test new stuff, but it takes a lot of time for the creative team to come up with the concepts nowadays and then get to the testing. Sometimes we're late to the market. And I think that we're going to all start working faster. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because everyone is going to get faster, so there is going to be that competition. But in general, I think it's a very positive change. Now I think we should open up for discussions, because I just overloaded you with lots of insights, and I'm really curious what do you guys think. Was this helpful?
I mean, it was ambitious, Tessa. Like, you went through a lot of very, a lot of it. You covered a lot of ground there. That was awesome. And if you ever want to come work with us at Superside, let's talk, because that was some really insightful things. And there was, I work day in, day out in this space, and there's areas there that I definitely didn't know. So it was really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you've spoken for a while, so I'm going to filter some questions in for you. I've got one of my own, but I'm gonna not be selfish, and I'm gonna ask the audience questions first. Some of them, okay, this one, Kim is asking something quite specific, so let's try a specific one to start with, if that's okay. Is it possible to use existing layout designs and put them into AI for in-context mockups? For example, a JPEG of an ad into a magazine or billboard setting.
If I understood the question correctly, I'll rephrase to make sure that we understand each other, is if you could use existing layout of or a template of a asset and then change some stuff. Yes, absolutely, you can do that. And if you just go quickly to Pixart.com to use any template, like as a mockup example, you could click on the visual and change the visual using AI. So it's super easy. The same works with a copy on most of the copy tools. So super easy to do that. And I think that was the main thing which helped us to scale that template production, because we have created a bunch of mockups of how the template should look like. And then we're populating it with different kinds of content. So yes, one of our main use cases.
Okay, awesome. There's some questions here saying, what tools do you use for image generation? I'm going to assume you say your own tools for image generation to that.
Yes.
Is that correct? I'm not going to get
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. In fact, we constantly test and try different models. So over time, we have integrated, tested, and trialed all the DALL-Es and Stable Diffusions and Midjourneys to the world. And I would say each of the models has their own benefits. I personally, and our team obviously, use Picsart's own generative AI model for visual creation.
Okay, okie dokie. Well, they're the kind of, keep the audience questions coming, because they are the ones I can see here. I've got some questions though. This is my life and my question. Okay. Do you think there's better leverage in creating net new brand assets from scratch, where you're, I guess, being not as deterministic and you're leaning into what AI wants to do, versus the effort that you need to put into to make something perfectly on brand? Like, where the effort that you're putting into asset creation, like replicating a brand really specifically, or making things that making a brand within AI models. Does that make sense to you?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Can you rephrase it maybe on an example? That would be easier.
So say, for example, I've got a brand that comes to me and say, I want to use AI to be exactly like that. As in, like, my brand, do not change a thing. Make people look like this, places look like that. This is exactly how I want it. That takes a certain amount of effort to do. Versus they come to you and say, I've got an idea. I want to have a beach campaign. Make it look like my brand, but not specifically. Like, where would you advise people at the moment with the current state of technology, like, to lean into that? Like, because I have an opinion on the effort and the impact there, but like, where would you say with your current understanding of the tech?
I think when there are very strict guidelines, if they're very strict, how I personally would approach that, but I'm not a creative director, so I would always say that I would, if it's very strict guideline and there is a very specific brief of draw these and that, then maybe AI is not necessarily the best tool for that, because why would you use that? And I think that if you have a bit more open brief, like do the summer campaign, but keep it on brand, then you could actually work with AI as your junior creative person and brainstorm some concepts and create stuff, and then still keep it on brand, put the logo in the right place and use the brand colors and all of that. But that's super easy to regulate currently.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree.
Do you agree?
I do agree. Yeah. Okay. I just the hardest thing. I just think the hardest thing I find, and I think maybe the hardest. I'm going to be super selfish. I'm the one talking with you, so I'll ask these questions. The hardest things I find is knowing at the beginning of the process how hard it's going to be. So pre-AI, I have really good intuition about it. As in, like, client comes to me, I can quite accurately understand the effort needed. I feel like I've lost my intuition a little bit because some things are harder than I anticipate. and some things are easier than I anticipate, and I just don't know where those things are because it's still in that new area. This is good to kind of sense check.
I know, right? It's the same for me. I know. Sometimes you think this is going to be faster, but it takes way more time.
Awesome. We've got some wonderful audience questions now. Okay, so wow, I'm not sure I understand this, but I'm going to try. What kind of type of data governance do you recommend vis-a-vis Gen AI and the latest with Taylor Swift? Okay, that was the Taylor Swift controversy. Yeah, data governance recommendations. Is there anything you can speak to there, or is that?
I am afraid I am not the right person to speak about data governance. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Let's keep going then. Are there any image generation tools that were not trained with art content without permission from the creators? Man, God, Diana, you're putting in the hard-hitting questions here. Are there any image generating tools that were not trained with art content without permission from the creators?
Yeah, I think the question is if they are tools which you could use with indemnification or with the right for commercial use. Yes, they are tools like that. Even Pixart offers the commercial use. And normally when people are given their data, they are given consent on a bunch of different platforms. So if you look at the Gen AI tools in general, they are the commercial use packages. However, there is always a risk. And that risk I would explain with a simple thing. It's like with humans. I don't know if that ever happened to you, but it happened to me a couple of times. As even when I work with designers, not with AI, we would get the design and then it would be so similar to something else you can find on the internet because someone just took a Moodboard or a reference from one of his platforms like Dribble and then just almost replicated it. So AI in that sense is very much like human. So even though the people could give consent to train the model and some of the platforms offer that both for text and visuals, we should be always very careful with what we're using. And especially if you're a big brand, I would strongly recommend to go to your legal team and double check and also use this thing, which is called Google search with images. That's what I did. For example, recently I was developing a logo and I got the logo design and then I used from a designer, not AI. And then I did the Google search and I learned that there is a very, very similar logo for the company in the same industry. So it was a no-go. I think that's like, it's like in life, you gotta double check and check again and again to make sure that you're not in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, no, very good answer. Difficult question and good answer. Like my opinion on this is people seem to overestimate humans and underestimate AI when it comes to these things. I see just as many mistakes or things or kind of androgynous or homogenous ideas coming from humans as I do from AI. Like, I think you're the kind of analogy of a intern is wonderful. I really use the same one, which is it's only as good as the time you'll give it. And if you spend a lot of time helping it, it will definitely help you a lot more. Okay, Chiara is asking, how can we persuade more conservative leadership managers who believe that AI-generated visuals are not exactly on brand?
Oh, that's a great one. I like that because I immediately imagine, I call this convince my dad type of the question. So I remember when I was working with Pixart a couple of years ago on one of the first AI models, and my dad was asking me, and my dad is 74 years old, just to give you a context, maybe a little older than your management team. And he asked me, what is AI? Like, what is this thing you work on? And then I realized that it takes me a lot of time to explain what that is. I always say nowadays, as we do pitch a lot to various B2B clients of different age, is that if I can't explain that to my dad or my mom or my niece or nephew of what this thing is, then I am not really understanding what I'm offering. So that's on the technology part, because oftentimes the reason why they say no is because they don't understand the tech behind that. And then there is the part in terms of being on brand or not being on brand. I feel you here. Sometimes the AI could generate stuff which could not be looking like it's on brand. But there are a few ways you could fix that. We have discussed a couple of options there. I'll just reinforce that. You could first be very precise with the types of imagery you give as references, or work from a reference or create a reference, work with the colors. Another one, which is very often not on brand, like one media agency in London told me that their client is very particular about the logo placement or putting the things in a particular order, etc. Thankfully, thanks to tag, it's not AI tag, by the way, it's just like really good script. You could put things in the specific area and lock them down so they don't get messed up, or add the logo at the end. Makes it much more on brand. And another pro tip, I don't know if you ever tried, but like if you really try with the visuals, we have done this test. It's like showing the person the visual made with AI and made with a human, and just try to rate them and be like, which ones you like more. Don't tell them it was made with AI. Just ask them and then see what they say.
We've run some tests on willing clients, just so you know, where we've labeled, we've not labeled, and we've mislabeled, right? So we've labeled the human work AI and the AI work human, all those different combinations. I'm sure lots of people have done this.
How did it go?
But it's incredible what feedback you get. Someone, like, whatever it's labeled human, be like, oh, that feels a bit warmer. It has a bit more heart to that one. If someone says, you know, it doesn't feel quite real when they're on the A1, but it's, you know, it could be anything. There is, we all have to understand AI has bias. We have inherent bias against it. It is a genuinely fascinating thing, because it really makes you unpack how you see the world, as well as it's why visual content is so wonderful, because it evokes emotion. It's there to communicate and connect. And that's a very abstract thing sometimes. That's not necessarily logical. And so it doesn't necessarily follow logical thought. I feel quite honored. Some people in the chat have asked me a question. So I'm going to answer the question. Okay. Yeah. Someone is interested in what I have to say for once. It's nice. Odd question, but at Superside, have clients been encouraging you to use AI-generated imagery or discouraging it? And I'll answer that to say both. It's both. We have customers that, for legal reasons, have not wanted to be involved. We've had customers for ethical reasons within their business not want to be involved. But they are the edge cases. Customers have been either overtly asking for us to do it. And in fact, I've seen a noticeable uptick in the last 3 weeks. It feels like the whole world has woken up and said they want AI things now. Or they've been implicitly asking us by saying, we need to do more of these. We need more of this thing. Like, we need this. Like, if they're asking for speed, we have solutions to it now. It's a wonderful thing as a creative to have different tools in the toolbox. And the reason I think that creatives and creators, and like all across the whole scale, including like what, you know, you've got an amazing community, like huge community of creators, that it doesn't stop us using the other tools. We've just now got more things. That's the coolest thing about it. Like, I can still draw, and I can still 3D model, and I can still do the things that I want to do. Like, nothing's stopping me doing it. It's super cool that we've got all these additional things. Final question, I think, Ish, maybe we might have a few more, but like, I'm going to ask this one to you. Are marketing agencies dead because of AI?
I would say marketing agency is dead because of AI if it does not use AI. So embrace. I think that we are at that stage, you know. I was thinking about it recently. It's so fascinating. We didn't have this kind of crazy industrial revolution type of a thing happening for years. And if you look at the previous generations, maybe a couple generations back, personal computer might have been one of these things, and the internet of like, oh, this thing is going to be completely dead. I think some things are going to be dead, but then there are going to be new things coming up, and there is definitely going to be transformation. And if you recall the slide which I showed with, if I can put it back on stage, team, that would be awesome. I can quickly go back to it and show with AI. hold on. Here we go. The AI landscape, this one. I just wanted to tell that AI knows currently, right, based on what Gen AI does, it just knows what it was fed. It does not have full human capabilities. General AI is something scientists are dreaming of and they're trying to create, but Gen AI is as good as working with you to help with stuff, but it would, at this stage, AI is not capable of just substituting the human. Some parts of our job, yes. Some parts of our work, yes. But it's not like gonna completely just substitute human or marketing manager or designer. And another thing which is important in my opinion, and how I talk with the team, because I've managed creative teams before, and there was this whole, I don't want to use that, I'm not sure as a marketing manager, like why would I rely on these things? And it was on every single team I've worked with. User acquisition managers didn't want to use all these optimization tools because they knew better, and they would beat things on like not automatically but manually, look at the budgets, etc., optimize across different cabinets. And it's normal. We as humans are frightened with some stuff. But then I now look at the same people and they're embracing the tools and they're using the tools pretty well. And it's remarkable what they're able to achieve and how much more efficient they are. So I don't think marketing industry is dead. I think it's going to be dead if you don't use it. Like the company is going to be dead if you don't use it. But I think most of the companies eventually will embrace, and it would be good.
Amazing answer. All right, we've got 3 questions, and we have 3 minutes. Okay, rapid fire now. Okay, how do you choose the right AI tools, and what is your approach to adopting them with your team?
It's a great question. So depends on a tool which we're looking at. As I showed you, there are very different applications, and we also have a bunch of things we use for coding and other parts of our organization. So I would say we generally check how legit is the developer and the model they have been building. Do they have their own model, or they're just trying to package a GPT thing? Because if it's just packed thing, which we can recall from OpenAI or someone else, we would just use that. So for us, that's number one thing we check. Second one is, depending again on the tool which I'm looking at, is understanding how many things that tool could provide. I'll give an example on Pixart tools. For example, some of our clients who come in and they're like, how do we know which one to choose? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You could compare things like there are tools like Remove BG and they just do remove background, and there are upscaler tools and they just upscaler. But are you really eager to try and connect 300 different APIs to your platform? Or do you rather go to one company and one provider and do all of them at once? So that's another thing which we'll look at, is when we connect some of the APIs or we choose some of the tools, is how good it is with integrations and how good it is to provide a holistic service to meet our needs. If it just provides one small solution, is it worth for us to invest our time or not?
Amazing. All right. Okay. Final question then. Do you have any recommendations for resources that deep dive into using AI tools for planning and analysis? And there's another one here on data analytics as well. Could it be explained in more detail? I don't think we have time for more detail, but is there any recommendations as a data nerd? Is there anything that you'd like to
I would honestly say that the very first thing to do is to understand conceptually how AI works, to be able to judge which tool works best for you. So if you haven't done it yet, as we don't have a lot of time, I'd just say watch Andrew's videos. He has a bunch of different Andrew NG, and if you miss out the name, I could share that as a helpful resource afterwards, or reach out on LinkedIn. He is awesome, and he explains that, and then the basics of data science, because it's really hard to choose the tool if you don't know the bottom line or the basics of what to choose from.
Amazing. That was so good. That was really, really helpful. And thank you very much.